All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm very happy to be here at GDC Europe for the first time. My name is Sila Costa. I am a development director on the Mass Effect 3. And today we're going to talk about From Boxes to Life, how to prototype and develop creatures. Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 case study. So those were the goals for today, by the way. Who am I? Before we start, I would like to tell a little bit about myself and my story. Like many of you, I am a gamer. I love games. I have this passion to develop games, this fire, and I always wanted to make like kick-ass games. And that's why back in 2000, I founded my own company. I don't know how many of you have your own company or founded your own company. And it was, I have like 4 different friends, and we got together, founded this company back in Brazil. And we had this really nice idea. Let's start with something different, right? Let's start with something that we can deliver, an MMO, right? So, yeah. So we started with an MMO, and we said, well, let's not do something that everybody's doing. Everybody's doing like RPG MMO. Let's try something different, a soccer management MMO, because we're from Brazil, you know. And so we did the soccer management MMO, and it was going to be browser-based, running in Flash, and with microtransactions. How naive, right? Back in 2000, it didn't work. We went to all publishers. They go like, how are you going to sell that? You need something to put in a box. You need to be on retail. No one's going to buy that. Browser? What are you thinking? We had to create an installer that had a browser inside, wrapper. It was still a browser game. Anyway, so long story short, after the MMO, we released the game, by the way, developed for 3.5 years, released the game 1.5 years. But then we changed it completely the way the company was going. We worked with hardware games. After hardware games, we went to serious games, PC casual games. Then I moved to Finland, worked at Digital Chocolate. Really nice guys there, lots of talent. And in Finland, I worked with mobile games, the old mobile games, Java games, not the iPhone easy way. It was the hard way that you have 3,000 handsets to care about, all the fragmentation possible. And after that, after mobile games, also still in Finland, we did Xbox Live games, PC games. And suddenly, I moved to BioWare 3 years ago and working in AAA games, console games. So I'm just telling this little story, and I hope that's not the story of any of you, because it's very crazy to go back and forth with all these platforms and genres and types of games. But I tried also, all the time, I was always trying to learn a little bit about, let's say, mobile games. I tried to learn a lot about mobile games and how I can use the knowledge that I had before into mobile games and then on AAA games and on and on. And that's why I'm here to talk with you guys, because what I found on Mass Effect 2 and what we're trying to do on Mass Effect 3, it's actually something that I learned before in the previous companies. All right, so what do I do? On Mass Effect 2, when I joined Mass Effect 2, I was responsible for the core programming team. The core programming team, tools, GUI, performance, and gameplay. Gameplay was a new team that we created with programmers and what used to be called system designers, gameplay designers. They are now gameplay designers, and QA. So we created this gameplay team to fix a problem we had on ME2 that we're going to discuss the whole time during this presentation. And on Mass Effect 3, along with 4 producers and project managers, we have also a few new teams like character art, animation, VFX, and online. So it's pretty much half of the ME3. So let's define what is a creature. Since we're going to talk about the creature creation process on Mass Effect 2 and 3, what is a creature? So a creature is not Shepard. If you know Shepard, our main character, although gameplay is responsible for Shepard, is also responsible for the henchmen. We're not talking about that. When we're talking about a creature, we're talking about those beautiful guys that we love to kill. So they're all the enemies. They're all the enemies that you find in a game, basically. So looking at the ME2 process, I love photography, by the way. Nothing related. So that's how it was our process back in the day. We pretty much, an artist, let's say the art director or actually a writer, could come up with a concept for a creature. Oh, let's create this big heavy mech. So we would go from the concept, then deliver to the character art team, create a model, animation team jumps in, makes everything animated, and then gameplay gets this full Mac, beautiful Mac, to make it fun. After gameplay works with it, back to VFX and audio. The problem here, I hope that no one has that kind of a problem, right? When something goes wrong here, guess where you're going back? You go back all the way here, and again, and again, and again. And when you're late in the game, it's kind of hard to go back and have a lot of rework. There's a lot of stress. So one example from Mass Effect 2, this creature is called the Praetorium. And it was this beautiful creature with 30 husks inside, and he had like really thin legs, and so they created the concept, back to character art, animation, and then to gameplay. When gameplay got the creature, we look at it and we said, oh, okay, cool, looks nice, but there is a problem. First of all, the creature is too big for the level. The level that it was supposed to be, that was the end boss of Horizon. So the creature couldn't move around the level. And the level was already at what we call orange box. By the way, if you want to know more about the level process, there was a presentation from Cory Andruko and Dusty Everman on GDC 2009, I think, that explains all the levels and the level process in BioWare, most specifically on Mass Effect 2. So the level was very advanced. We couldn't change the geometry of the level anymore. Well, at least the level designers didn't want to change it. So the creature couldn't move around. Someone, like, what are we going to do? Oh, let's make the creature smaller then. If we make it smaller, then character art and animation are complaining because you don't want to scale out the creature. And it's going to, like, they will have to have a lot of rework. And on top of that, gameplay wanted to do different stuff with the creature that it wasn't thought for. On top of that, the level had a lot of slopes, and the creature had these really thin legs, right? And like, try to imagine the slope and the creature like hitting here and all the other legs flying. It was like, well, okay, so what are we going to do about that? And they go, well, why don't you create a flying system like this so the creature can fly? And we're like, oh, for one creature, we have like 30 others. I'm like, come on. So it was very painful, a lot of rework, a lot of stress. And that's late in the game, right? You don't have a lot of time to go back and start redoing this stuff. So although it was, in the end, the creature was nice, it was a very painful process to get there. And the same thing happened, that's just one example. We had the Baby Reaper in the end of the game. Same kind of problems. We also had with the Mac Dogs, and we had another creature called the Spider Junior, I think, that was, they were so similar that in the end we cut the Spider because we couldn't change them. Like the changes we wanted to do, we didn't have time to do it, and it was like, okay, then let's cut the creature. Or even the vehicle, which is not even a creature, but same kind of a problem. So we had this problem like over and over in ME2. So the major problem for us was exactly the fact that when we got the creature here for gameplay, and we had to start iterating with the creature to define the fun for the creature, the basic behaviors, the defense, how the creature was going to move, we had to change a lot of stuff and going back and forth. So we had to find a different way to do that. Another big problem that we had, the level designers were getting the creatures too late. So we have something that we call the Christmas build. When you work in consoles, it takes 2-3 years to ship a game. And we had the Christmas build, and we only had like 3 creatures ready for all the levels. And try to imagine you have 20-something level, 20-plus levels, and only 3 creatures for the level designers to play with it. So very repetitive. That's why on Mass Effect 2 you can see a lot of light mechs all around. So that was another big problem for us. And the third big problem was the silos. Like you saw before, we had like BioWare used to have, in Edmonton at least, we had rooms for 3 people only, and it was like 3 programmers, 3 artists, 3 concept artists, and 3. And communication didn't flow really well, and we had a lot of silos, so we had to break those silos. So when you're trying to like change a process, when you're trying to understand how you can improve it, you obviously have to analyze all the issues. So after Mass Effect 2, we did a post-morning with all the teams, very extensive post-mortem, collecting all the feedback about stuff that we needed to improve, not only in the game, in the product, but also in the process and everything else. And after we did that post-mortem, we noticed that all the teams were complaining about the same stuff, about like all the rework and the stress that they had with the creatures going back and forth. By the way, that's my son playing soccer. So you have to focus on the most important problem. After we analyzed everything, we said, from all the problems that we heard, what is actually the main problem here in this whole process? The problem wasn't this, the stress and the rework was just like symptoms, right? I mean, they're not the root cause. The root cause was that we were not iterating a lot on the creature. We were iterating on the creature when it was very expensive to do so. We needed to find a way to iterate and prototype in a way that we could like cut the creature or cut the behavior really, really soon without affecting all those teams. So on ME3, on ME3 we tried to change. But when you have to keep in mind that BioWare is a company 15 years old already, or 16 maybe, 15 I think, with all this track record, lots of games, and lots of good games. And when you go there and say, hey guys, I'm like, we have all these cool games, but we're not doing it right. And people go, yeah, right. Yeah. What are you talking about? So people, usually they're scared of changes, right? When you come, I like this one because it's a storm was coming in Edmonton. One day we were traveling to California and there was this store and the guys were like, oh, look at the storm and like the sky's orange and like funnel clouds and it's wow. And I was like, wait, I'm like, you have to look at the bright side also. Try to look at the good thing. There's a rainbow here. I don't know, it's really hard to see, but there's a rainbow, man. There is a rainbow. There must be a pot of gold there. And so people usually, when there is a change, like they try to stay in the comfort zone. I don't know, in high school, or at least for me in high school, when you had your class, you go to your class and people start to sitting at the same place every day. And then that place, even though it's not supposed to be your place, but people think it is their place. They don't want to change anymore. And I used to do that just to see what happened. I would like sit at some other places just to see. And people are like, why are you sitting here? Like, no, but, oh, I'm sitting here. It's not your place. I sit here every day. So, like, it's not your place. You have the bubble gum is yours here, but no, it's not. So people are scared of changes. That's something that we have to remember. And we have also tried to, and it's funny because I'm project manager, and as a project manager, I always have to think about the worst thing that can happen all the time, right? But I also try to think about the best thing that can happen also. And usually it's something in between that it's going to happen. So keep that in mind. When you're trying to change, when you're trying to innovate, you have to try to focus also on the best things that can come out of the change. Let's do a little detour here and talk about innovation. So when you're trying to innovate, when you're trying to make big change, actually, before I start, what is innovation for you? And like we talk a lot about innovation and being innovative and creative, but what is actually innovation? Try to think about it. Okay, you thought, I hope. So innovation, usually people start, innovation is when you have like a nice idea. You have this cool idea that no one had and you're going to develop. That's a totally different thing, a totally new way to do something. I was like, cool. But that's just an idea. I had a professor that he was one of the best professors I ever had, actually. And he's an entrepreneur. I don't know how many companies he had already like founded. And he put a sign on the door because people would go there to speak about their cool ideas and the new stuff that they wanted to do. And he put a big sign there saying, get your new idea and take it somewhere else. In Portuguese it was a little bit different, but yeah, take it, you know. And basically what he was trying to say was, if your idea is so good, and you come here alone, I'm not going to even listen to it. Convince at least one of your friends that the idea is good, do a prototype about it, and then you come to speak with me. Because innovation is not only having an idea. That's just the first part of it. You have to have the idea, you have to work on the idea, you have to deliver, and you have to have a final product or service that you're going to deliver to the market. That's when innovation actually happens. When you go all the way, and it's not only having the idea. Okay, back from the detour to the second detour now. Let's look about some innovations that happen in other industries related with us, like music, for example. We had a long play for, decades, the same long play. Someone comes and creates like a CD. Well, okay, music industry is still going, it's just digital now. And then someone creates MP3 and a peer-to-peer connection. What happens? Right? Like, they don't know what to do with the business model anymore. It's like, well, how are we going to survive? Like, everybody's like, no one is buying music anymore. The ones that can adapt, the ones that can understand this new concept, they will survive and they will grow. Same thing, if you think about the phone, like the old phone, also decades, you had the same old phone at home. I don't even have a phone at home anymore. I was scared, actually. That's funny, because I had a phone at home. When I moved to Finland, no one had a phone there. And I was like, you don't have a phone at home? Like, how come you don't have a phone at home? You need a phone at home. I said, no, everybody has a cell phone. Why do I need a phone at home? If I have a cell phone with me all the time. I was like, well, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, why do I need a phone there? And I don't have a phone anymore. And from that phone, someone invented a mobile phone that looked like a brick, super heavy, and it was cool. And hey, look, I still remember Michael Douglas, I think, like walking on the beach, sunset, and this big mobile, and I'm so cool. I'm speaking on the phone and like watching the sunset, and something no one could do before. And after many iterations, we're going to come up with something that is very different and innovative. I love the iPhone, by the way, and I'm not an Apple fanboy. It's a PC here. It's a PC, you can see. I try to convince myself that it's not a computer, but it is. All right. So those guys actually, looking at the iPhone, it's funny, because if you think about it, back when Steve Jobs and I forgot his name now, the other co-founder of Apple, if someone can help me. I can't remember. Huh? Yeah, Wozniak, exactly. So when they were college students, actually, they were hacking with the phone and trying to create something new about it. And they created this little blue box. I don't know if you ever heard about a blue box. And it was so they had the idea of making some kind of a hardware software that could make you free phone calls anywhere. It wasn't Skype at the time. And it wasn't legal either. But they created this blue box, and they delivered to a market, and they sold it to the college students that wanted to make international calls somewhere. So they went all the way from idea to product, all the way into the market. And the same guys after, they founded Apple, and they continue to hack around until they finally get something that is like this. So that's just one example, another example of innovation, going all the way from an idea to the product. So you have to try. You're going to make many mistakes in the process. You're going to hit your head on the wall, but if you don't try, you're not going to get there. Okay, let's look at Mass Effect 3. So I discussed it with our lead creature designer, Brennan Holmes, about this idea of changing the process. What can we do? And he said, well, if we want to change, we can do that. And then we started creating the process. So the first step, and that's what actually we have on Mass Effect 3, by the way, is the gameplay concept. We have a phase called the gameplay concept. I'm going to explain all the phases for you guys. Next step is prototyping. And you can see here that instead of the waterfall, you have this iteration going on with many teams working in the same phase. Then you move to final prototype, rough creature, and polish. Again and again and again. And by the way, slides were going to be available. I have to copy and everything. All right, so let's look at the first phase, the gameplay concept phase. We have 4 key points in this phase. The first one is to define the faction. What is a faction? So for ME3, we have basically 3 factions, and you have to define this group of enemies, this group of creatures, that they make sense together. They don't look necessarily the same, like their silhouette is different, but at the same time they have the same colors, the same kind of a uniform, although they may be completely different from each other. So we created the factions. We discussed it. We had to sit down actually with the writers and discuss about it and make it also sense, because you have the writers coming up with all crazy ideas about how it's going to be. And we had like 50-something creatures, and we're like, well, we cannot develop that much with the time that we have, maybe in like 10 years. So we cut it down, and we created the factions. That was the first step. That's the Reaper faction, by the way. And then, after creating the factions, you create the roles. If you have this group of 6 enemies or 7 enemies, what are you going to do? We have, first of all, we have the Covert Taker, our game of, if you don't know the game, like it's an action game, and you take over and you fight your enemies through. So the Covert Taker, it's the kind of enemy that he's going to start shooting at you, and he's going to take over and duck and shoot you again. You're going to have the slow pressure kind of enemy. He's going to come slowly to you, and usually has a lots of health, kind of a tank, and shooting you, putting pressure. So you have to take over when he comes, usually. You have some support creatures. They're going to be in the back, like assisting the enemies that are fighting you. And usually, if you don't do anything about them, they keep helping, and it's bad for you. You also have the suppressors. Suppressors are, let's say, the snipers, so they're going to be in the back as well, but shooting you, and when they're there, you have to take over. And you also have the cover buster, which is going to go there and take you out of cover, because he has, for example, a shield. So you can see that they're kind of conflicting, right? Like some creatures are going to put you in cover, some creatures want to take you out of cover, and so that's the whole idea, that we have those enemies that together, like 1 + 1 is going to be 3 when they're working together. After defining the factions and the roles, we had to create the Creature Bible, which is a document which anytime the project can go there and look at what is a creature and what it means. So we always have like the concept for the creature. Excuse me. When you have the 3D model, you also put the model here. What is the name of the creature? What's the overview? What's the size of the creature? The size and the weight. Well, weight is not that much important, but the size is very important for the levels designer, so that they already know how to create the cover and what kind of a space they need. What kind of weapons they're going to have, how fast they're going to move, all kind of information, even audio information, what's the role that they play. So since the beginning of the project, since pre-production, we created this Creature Bible, and it keeps evolving through time. And yeah, even memory, we put memory and lots of stuff. We also have the Creature Pipeline document in this phase, which is basically the document that describes what each phase means. So prototype, that's what we're going to deliver. That's what prototype means. That's kind of the creature boxes that you guys are going to see. So we created the definition of the process, and also we update the process as we go. So those were the 4 points for a gameplay concept. The next phase is the prototyping phase. And in the prototyping phase, you can see that some teams are more involved with this phase, like gameplay and concept, than others. But everybody has a little bit of work in that phase, and that's very, very important. So let's talk about the Heavy Mech and the Atlas. So on MA2, we had this creature called the Heavy Mech, and we started to discuss how we can do like a new creature for ME3 that is bigger, bulkier, and meaner than the Heavy Mech. Let's look at some videos. All right. Just want one video, not all. Sound on? Okay, so that's what we call a creature, a box creature. The idea was to create this little box or combination of boxes that you could interact with. So they have some basic animations. And here, we're just prototyping, for example, if you have like an armor plate in this new Heavy Mech called the Atlas. You can see also that he has like a head, and if you try to shoot his head, he tries to protect it. So we started to play with it. And that's, by the way, the quality of the video, I apologize, but that's how we we do. It's not beautiful. It's just like Shepard is Shepard just because he's ME3. If it was ME1, probably he would be a box as well. But you can see that we can start like playing with the atlas, right? So let's cue this one. Let me show another one now. Then we started to say, all right, let's see how is the fight then. Now he can shoot at you. He can shoot rockets also, or use his cannon. And he's moving, forcing you to get out of cover, trying to shoot the armor plate. Okay. And then you start prototyping, right? And it's very, very cheap to do so. Like we just need one gameplay designer, one programmer, and one animator. In 1 week, they can prototype a lot of those features. And if it's not fun, we cut it. I mean, like it's not a big deal. I'm like, it's, instead of wasting like weeks and weeks and weeks of work of lots of people, it's just like 3 guys. So in a week, that's really cheap for us. I know it's a different scale. So here, another type of prototyping. Now we're going to look at try to prototype some defense mechanisms for the Atlas. If you start shooting him and he feels like he's in danger, what he can do, well, he can always like cover his face, and he can like throw a smoke grenade. And the funny thing is that if you're close to him and he throws the smoke grenade, what's going to happen? Like you cannot shoot him anymore, you cannot see him anymore. So you have to move. Usually, you get out of cover, and if you try to fight with him like one-on-one without cover, too bad. And again, another example from the Atlas at close range. And then we started to discuss, oh, what if you get really close to the Atlas? What he can do? Let's prototype something different then. All right. Trying to get him angry. Get close. Oh, he's trying to hit you. Oh, watch out. Ah! So you see, that's really cheap. And like in a very short amount of time, like a week, you can prototype a lot. And you can play with it, and you see, you keep on iterating on the core game mechanics for that creature. And in the end, when you say, okay, we really want the Atlas to hit you and grab you and shake you in the air. So after we decide that, when we start to execute becomes the easy part, because we know exactly what we need the creature to do. All right. Okay. So yeah, it works. So that's the concept for the Atlas. After we did the box creature and the prototype was approved, at the same time, actually, we started to discuss about the concept, and the artists were doing the concept for the Atlas, and okay, he's going to look like this big, and this version actually looks very clean. Actually, it's not weather or anything, and it's funny that you can see that the hook is here on the right side, but actually in the final version, you can see it's on the left side. So we changed it, and by the way, that doesn't mean that that's the final one. I'm like we're still like making changes all the time. But you see that it's very much more like weathered and rusty, but you have a cockpit and you have a guy inside like running the Atlas. And then someone goes, can we prototype that you're actually that guy running the Atlas and shooting stuff? And yeah, we can. But I can't show that. Yet. All right, so the same process we apply to all the other creatures, right? Doing this prototype phase, and by the time of the Christmas build, instead of 3 creatures, we ended up with 17 creatures on the prototype stage. So try to imagine as a level designer, 3, 17, better a little bit. And actually, some of the levels that we have, they're like special levels, and they need many, many different creatures in order to make sense. And yeah, and it could only happen because we had all those creatures prototyped. Let's show more prototyping stuff. So someone goes, what if the creatures can disappear? Or maybe the other way around, appear. So that's another example. So it's like, okay, they come in stealth mode, and it's not only one, it's actually a pack. You have 3. And it's funny because the first time I actually play that, when the first one pops up, I'm like, oh, he's here. I'm going to kill him. And then the second one, I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. I better do something. And then the third one is like, oh, I'm dead. Because that's exactly what happens. So when the first one shows up, run. Like, Forest, Command Shepherd, Forest. Come, run. And then we go, okay, what if they can they roll? It's funny, doesn't it? Like the boss creature, like rolling, peeking, trying cover, taking cover. If you get too close, he goes like, oh, I'm in danger. Smoke. So then you start playing with that and prototyping. That's very cheap again. And you just like keep adding stuff. And then one idea from one creature goes to the other one. And the stealth and the smoke grenade. I love when he rolls. And someone goes, okay, what if it has a shield? Can we interact with the shield? Yes, you can hit him. Sometimes he's going to like lose the balance, but he keeps coming. But maybe if you use a power like throw, then you can take it down. He runs for cover, still shooting you. And my favorite one, what if the husk wants to kill you? That zombie comes and grabs you. Like a box creature, really? Die, Shepherd. You're dead. And there's the other one. Again. Take that, yellow box creature. So, as you can see, well, let's say that, for example, the camera shake is wrong, or I don't know, we wanted to change something. It's really cheap. Like, you just change like those animations. You don't have to worry about all the stuff of the final mesh. So after we started doing that, like everybody was much more happy. All right. Okay. So next phase, final prototype. In final prototype, basically, we have. So the creatures, we were just playing with the creature here, creating the first prototype, and the final prototype we used to call phase 1, actually. We had, the names were phase 1, 2, and 3, and we said, well, nobody knows what is phase 1, 2, and 3. So the final prototype phase, the creature has all the basic, not only the basic attack, which was the prototyping phase, but the basic and the secondary attack, the defense, like how fast he moves, how fast he, like it's going to like run from you. Like all the behaviors are exactly, or let's say 90-95% as you're going to find in the final creature of the game. And you can see that now we start doing the model for the creature with character art, and animation is also working, and lots of gameplay stuff also. So different teams, the same teams, but working with a little bit more on the creature. Oh, sorry. I have a video actually. Good that I remember. Almost forgot. Actually, let's stop. So try to think if you could, with all the prototyping that you have done, and then you add all them up into one creature. That's more or less what's going to happen with the Phantom. So you try to attack him, has like a shield, rolls away, goes stealth. Oh, he knew. Where's him? Rolling again. He feels in danger, goes stealth mode, tries to find a cover. You try to get close, that's a bug. Oh, he's attacking you. Like, look now, pay attention. You're shooting him, sending powers. He's sucking everything. Oh, he flips again. Goes away, stealth. How am I going to kill him? Ah, yeah, finally. So, that's one example of a final behavior for a creature, like what we call the final prototype. So we have all the little details working together to make this creature fun and challenging. And I have to tell, that one was very difficult to kill. I remember the creative director, how am I going to kill? It's always, every time I shoot him and send powers, he's like sucking the powers. I can't kill him. He runs away, gets stealth. I'm like, yeah, all right. We had to change it a little bit, but it was too difficult. Maybe for insanity. All right, next phase, rough creature, which in our original process was when, okay, now character art worked created the final mesh. We have the final mesh and all the animation coming in, and that's what the levels we're going to get, like the creature with the final mesh and all, pretty much almost the final animation. And we add VFX, lots of VFX and audio to the creature. And from rough creature, we go to polish, which is the final phase that we spend a lot of time actually into polish to make sure all little details are fine. And everybody works in polish. Nobody escapes. Results. So let's discuss a little bit about the results of the new process. The first problem that we found was actually here. Like the time that it took from the final prototype phase to the rough creature phase was very long. And from a level design perspective, although it was fine for a gameplay and animation, character art, concept, all those teams that you can see here, the other clients we had, the level designers, when the level was getting closer to getting done, when it looks like not like the what we call white box, right? Like not when the level has all the geometry and the texture and the lighting, and then you're finding. Try to imagine that you're finding that Atlas with the final mesh, and then you're finding the Guardian with the shield. And then suddenly comes the yellow box creature flipping around, and you go like, oh, like that's a broken window. Like you forget actually it makes you think that, oh, I'm in a game again. Like it takes the immersion completely. It's a broken window. So that was a very big problem for us, and we didn't anticipate that, and we had to change and create a new phase, basically call it meshing game. So. We created, that's exactly what it means. Like we put the mesh, the basic mesh with the basic animation so that it's less of a broken windows for the levels. So that was one of the changes we had to do. So we're still hacking, creating our blue box. Another result, we got a much more committed team. This is every sprint, we do agile, and I'm not going to go into that, but so every end of sprint, we do a review at desk review, and everybody shows what they did in the last 3 weeks. And for example, here we have our core combat designer, Corey, showing new weapons and how we're using the new weapons to kill the creatures. And you can see how the guys are watching the thing, and like the concept art is like he's having fun, the animator even more fun. And I don't know why, but the two QAs look very concerned. All that crazy stuff. How I'm going to test that? Stealth, flipping. God, many bugs. But yeah, so that's the team. And actually the team got much more committed because everybody had a say in the prototyping phase. So the character artists they would come and say, hey, what if it looks like this? Or what if the creature does that? I can put like a cockpit, or it can have some stairs that I collapse, and you can jump and get into the Atlas. And so everybody started to feel that it was not something that someone comes and say, hey, here, go. Like do that kind of work here and give it back. No, everybody felt like they were part of the team. And you can notice here, there is a little guy here also. Like that's our guy, our level designer, Manvier. He works from Montreal. And he was also joining with a Mac again. Anyway, all right. So still on the committee teams, so that's enough. So another result, or I would say actually a challenge for us, is that you have to work on expectations. And like when you're trying to change a process, when you're trying to make changes, and more specifically when you're trying to make big changes, you have to work on expectations. You have to make sure that you have top-level buy-in. So we had to discuss with the creative director, with the art director as well, and say, hey, we want to make those changes. We need your support. We need you. If you're not 100% behind the changes, we're not going to do it because it's not going to work. And then we discuss it a lot. We hear the concerns they had, what kind of stuff, what were their perception, what kind of output they expected of the process, the new process. And we always try to work with them to make sure that they were happy. So you have to work on the expectations. Like, it's like the race and everybody's just watching who's going to... Because there is always the guy that is afraid of the change. Is like, oh, he wasn't first all the way, but he's going to fall here, like 100 meters away from the end and face on the mud. I knew it was going to happen. It's not going to work. And so there is always someone thinking that's not going to work. It's not going to work. And you have to turn things around and say, yeah, we're going to get it done. Let's work on the expectations. It's new. We're going to hack. We're going to make changes. We're going to improve. But we're going to get there. We're going to get to the finish line. Another thing that is important also is to use cross teams. So on Mass Effect 2, we had the gameplay team, which was created late in the process, actually. And it had gameplay designers and gameplay programmers and QA, embedded QA. On Mass Effect 3, we had much more, actually, because we created the 3 guys that did a prototype and the programmer, the lead creature designer. He's behind the desk here, and the animator here. Yeah. He's hidden here. Yeah. I tried to Google him. I couldn't find a picture of him in Google. I'm like, he manages to always hide himself. But anyway, going back to the cross teams, so we also have the lead animators here. So pretty much we put animators also in the room. We have animators, designers, programmers, QA, everybody in the same big room. We put down some walls, like forget about the 3-room thing. Like we put down some walls. And we moved also, if we had a bigger room, we would, but we put on the other room right in front, we put the other tech animators, the concept artists, and mix them all. And that helped a lot. So now the guys, actually, it's funny, because we had to move a few guys, and, we have to move that guy. We're going to move. No, you cannot take this guy from here. I was like, you always complain when I try to bring the guys. Like, no, you don't want to. Yeah, so they don't want to change anymore after you put them together. So use the cross team as much as possible. Probably if you have a small team, you already know that. I'm like, if you work with 8 mobile games, I'm like, I know exactly. That's where I came with the idea. And also, the process, first of all, it's only going to work if you have talent also. You need to have talent people. You need to have people that are going to believe and trust each other. It's kind of like the F-18 guys like flying. I'm like, they need to be very good at what they do, and they need to trust each other. They need to know how far they are from each other, and they have to communicate really well, because if they make mistakes, they can crash and burn. Burn for sure. And so you have to improve the communication and visibility for the team, for the other teams that depend on it, like level design, for example, and also for the big stakeholders, the directors or managers or so. So what we did, we created the dashboard. Of course, that's not the only thing we did, but that's just one example of trying to improve the communication. We created a dashboard that anytime the project, and by the way, that's old, no one complained about it, but you could see those are the creatures we have. Those are the ones in prototype phase or phase 1, final prototype, or meshing game, or phase 2, which is the rough creature phase. So you could see the snapshot of where they are and when we're going to deliver each phase. So the level designers could go there. All right, I need those 3 creatures, this one and this one and this one. Oh, okay, I can have it here and here. So that was very, very helpful for us. And finally, I think that when you're trying to make a big change in the process, when you're trying to improve a process and trying to take it further, I'm like, obviously you have to make a journey from A to B, which means we have to come up with the idea for the creature and deliver the creature in the end. And there are many ways and many paths that you can take to get there. But I think that all of my life, I always had, my name, Sila, comes with a Y and an A. In Brazil, names with A, 95% of the time they're girls. And Y doesn't have in our alphabet. So it was very funny when I was young. But anyway, I have the Y in my name, and the Y got stuck with me, and I always asked why. So you have the power to always ask why. I'm like, people get annoyed when you go like, well, that's how we always done it. I was like, why? And like, why? Because I said so. No, why? Like, why you always do like that? Why can't we do differently? And some guys are going to really stop and think and try to come up with another way to do it. And some guys are going to, you're just bugging me, go away. So I think it's important when you're making changes to realize that although you have to go from A to B, you have the power to decide what is the path you're going to take. Are you going to follow whatever everybody else is always saying that you should do? Or are you going to try something new? Are you going to try to make a better path for all of you? So that's my idea of better path, by the way. That's in Jasper, Alberta, Canada. So it's still like the train goes there, but I think it's beautiful that there are all the flowers there. And anyway, so you have control of the path. So you can make the changes. Don't accept just because that's how we always did. Like 15 years, what are you talking about? Like, how are we going to change that? Like, don't. Challenge, and when it makes sense, make the changes. There are risks, of course. If you're more risk-prone, then, make calculated risks and try to create something new. And know that sometimes you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to get it right the first time. But keep trying and improve. And then finally, I think that right now, the team is much happier, much less stress. The creatures are better. And hopefully, when the game gets released on March next year, hopefully you're going to play the game and notice the difference between Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. It's good to give me the feedback, please. And like I said, give me the feedback. That's my email. That's my Twitter. If you want to hear about soccer or something like that. In Portuguese, I always tweet. I tweet in English also. But that's usually Mass Effect 3 stuff. So big thanks before the questions. Big thanks to the entire gameplay team. Not only the gameplay team, but the gameplay team, character art, animation, VFX, audio, and QA. QA awesome. You guys, all you guys rock. Special thanks to Brennan. He was our champion for the process. I forgot to mention that. You have to find the champion when you're making the process change. You have to find that guy that is going to drive the horse from the beginning to the end, even if everybody's going like, you're going to fall, it's not going to work. And he's like riding the horse and going into the end. So that's the guy, Brennan. Baldwin, Noah, and Preston. Special thanks for you guys. And since I couldn't find a picture of Brennan, I wanted to put it there, but I didn't. So I put his breakfast here. The breakfast of the champion. And that's his breakfast. Salted flakes. It's not frosted flakes, salted flakes. All right, questions? Do we have any questions? Oh, thank you. Questions? Anyone? Everybody shy? You can ask why. One question here. I'm sorry?
Sound. So what do you involve sound?
Oh yeah, true. That's actually something that we need to change. We should have been doing scratch sound since the beginning. We could have been doing scratch sound since the prototype phase. We could add the sounds for we had that idea, but from a completely different problem. All the audio guys were working at DA2, Dragon Age 2, so we didn't have the guys to do so. That was the main reason why we didn't put the audio there. But you're totally right. We should have audio since the beginning. Questions over there? You guys are together. You have to. Yeah. Oh, microphone. Awesome.
You said for the changes to go to don't maintain the same way you're doing things. Is that scalable also to really critical functions? For example, in a company like BioWare, you have to you have ship dates, you have things to do where it's like a lot of money behind it. So how you approach to change like key functions?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and that's actually the key question, right? That's why I said that you have to have top level buy-in. If you don't have the top level buy-in, we had to convince. Remember the professor saying that if you have an idea, get the idea, and so you have to convince someone else before you come here with your idea. I had to convince the creative director. I had to convince, well, not only myself, but myself and Brennan and the other guys. Hey, we need to do that change. And after we got the top level buy-in, then everything gets easier because, the directors are in agreement with you. But you have to prove that we need to change. They understand the problem, and there is a risk. We have ship date, there is money involved, but they have to believe also that the change is good. They have to take the risk. And actually, if it didn't work, let's say that it didn't work, we were in pre-production. We could see that, let's say, prototype was not working. All right, let's go back to the old way. I mean, we could have gone back, actually.
Here.
All right.
How long does it take each development phase?
It varies. That's very good, actually. As you can see, it depends on how many people you have. So, for example, for prototype, for the prototyping phase, you can be 1 week, can be 2 weeks. It depends on how much you want to invest. Usually, what you do, you kind of time box, because otherwise they would be prototyping for 9 months on the creature, right? So you kind of try to time box and say, all right, we're going to have 1 week or 2 weeks to prototype this creature. Go. Do as many different crazy features as you want, but you only have 2 weeks. And it's good to put the pressure also of the time so that they come up, they try to come up with the best stuff. It works actually. So let's say that's for prototyping. Some other creatures like Machine Game, for example, it really depended on the creature. Like if we had a humanoid creature, it was much faster. But for the new creatures that were completely different, we need like a new rig and everything else. Then it would take longer. So there isn't one time that I could tell you. It really varies a lot.
Hi, Zilla.
Oh,
I have a question.
All right.
Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thanks.
I can see it's a very nice thing you're doing with the ninja stuff.
Yeah.
Very good. My question is, after all these iterations and prototypes, how is the decision made? I mean, after everything is tested, is it the team that decides which feature or which kind of thing that this creature will do? So how is it decided?
Yeah, so in Bioware, usually what happens, the creative director, Preston, he comes, like I said, like we have the sprint review, and he comes to the sprint review, and he's usually one of the guys watching what we developed during the 3-week period, and he's pretty much going to say, okay, we would actually pitch for him, like, okay, we think it's in the prototype phase now, that's the basic attack, that's the basic move, etc., etc. And then he would play with it, and he goes like, okay, I want to, what about this change? Change this little thing, and you don't like that, or no, it's approved. So after he gets the approval, then we move to the next phase. So he pretty much approves everything. But he only comes for the approval, right? Next one. Let's go in there. I'm amazed that actually I did it in time. I do speak a lot.
My question was from the videos you shown. I saw that during the prototype and the first prototype sessions, actually there seems to be very little on the concept side of the characters. Did you keep the 3-people team locked during the entire game, or were they more or less flexible?
Very good question. So in the concept phase, in the very beginning of the concept phase, it was pretty much just a gameplay designer, like trying to figure out what was going to be, working with the writers, asking the other guys about it. It was pretty much the lead creature designer working on it. When we started the prototype phase, then we have the animator and the gameplay designer and the programmer working together. And those 3 guys, they pretty much, not only the 3 guys, but then it becomes a problem of bandwidth. If we had only the 3 guys, it would take longer. So we added more guys on later on the project so that we could pump more creatures out. Like for example, for the Christmas build, we had 3 gameplay designers, 3 programmers, 2 animators. So you can change the throttle depending on how fast you want to go. One question here.
The resource allocation.
Oh, all right.
If you look at the different prototype phases, the different disciplines have different amount of works. Is that in amount of people or actually time? And did that mean people get
You mean when...
How do you keep everyone at the same amount of busy?
So you mean here?
Yeah.
If this is amount of work or... well, I'm just... it's a little bit abstract here, yes. I'm trying to say that's more or less the amount of work that we use on each phase. But it's not precise. I was just trying to highlight that, for example, concept, it's more involved in the prototyping phase, a little bit less here, and less as you go on, right? And the character art is going to be less involved here, but here he's going to be more involved and less later on. So I was just trying to show that many teams are really working on that phase, and some more than others. But you don't have to be very specific about how much, right? It's just, it really depends on the project you have, or I don't know if you're working with mobile games or social games or a AAA console game. You have to understand your problem well and define how much do you need for each phase.
Do you have a pipeline like the VFX could work on prototyping on some creatures and rough creatures on others at the same time?
You mean after rough? Sorry? For VFX?
I mean, could you be in different stages at different times for different creatures?
Oh yeah, completely. Pipeline? Like if you look here, you can see that we have creatures at completely different stages, right? Like we're not like all the creatures at prototype. All creatures, we don't move the whole thing at the same time. Depending on like one big example. Let's say we have a E3 demo to do. Well, we did it right in June, and you want to show 3 creatures or 4 creatures, 3 creatures actually we did, I think. So those are the 3 creatures that are more advanced here. So we push them forward. And actually it was good for us because we want to change, we want to test the process and see how it goes. And that's when we came up with the mashing game thing, for example. So usually what we like to do, it's kind of that kind of a curve. It's like you try to get a vertical slice of your game with the main features and the main creatures, well, not main creatures, but some creatures. All the way close to what we call phase 2, the rough creature. And you take them really close to polish, and then, okay, it works, I can see it works, let's replicate with the other 20-something that we have. Next question. Oh, there's one in the back there, on the left side.
Hi. I was wondering, when you are still at the prototyping phase, like in the videos you showed us, do you already have an idea how the creature will look like? I mean, in terms of art?
Not necessarily. So sometimes we start, when we created, like in the gameplay concept phase, the very first phase, so the gameplay designer is saying, all right, I need this heavy mech. I just know the Atlas, for example. It's going to be a big mech, but I have no idea how it's going to look like. And actually, that's the fun part. The fun part is that after we start prototyping with the creature, it's easier for the concept artist to develop the concept because he can see what the creature is going to do, right? So we find out that actually the time on Mass Effect 2, sometimes we had like several iterations on the concept until we got something that was like that we were happy with. And now it's easier because they see more or less what the creature is going to do. Oh, all right, so the arm is going to move this way, so I need to make it so that the joints are not like this, right? He needs to move like this. So I think it helped a lot, actually. And that's why in the very first phase of prototype, we're at the same time that we're developing the creature, we're also creating the concept, the concept art, right?
So yeah, you believe it's a better idea to really wait for the prototype to be really finished before going straight to the concepting?
If it's a good idea to add weight to which phase, sorry?
I mean, before creating really the concept art, I think it's a good idea to really wait until the prototype is finished?
Not necessarily. I think that's the good thing about it. Now, by the way, please fill the forms. If you like it, put good scores, and then I can come back next year. Not necessarily. I don't think you have to wait all the way until you prototype, because when you're prototyping, and the concept, it's also good when you see when you visualize the creature, right? So when the artist starts like visualizing the creature and he puts like, oh, it's going to look like that, and then he gives you another idea. Oh, yeah, you put it like the head like a cockpit, so maybe we can have someone inside. Can we put someone inside? And then the concept artist goes there and like, oh yeah, no. So now one thing helps the other, and then the animator comes with a new idea. So that's the very cool magic thing that happens. If you try to do the concept and the prototype at the same time, you get all this magical feedback from all the other teams. I think it's better than waiting. Next question here. We're here.
So, do you make the 2D concept design and after completing that, make a 3D mesh and see and improve it, or you completely do not use 2D concepts?
So your question is if we create 3D concepts?
No. I'm asking because I know that people are using 2D concepts,
Yeah.
and not to lose time,
Yeah.
they make the mesh from those concepts, and that's the final. But we are talking about iterations, and I couldn't understand what's your complete pipeline. I mean, in your situation, I think you are not using 2D concepts, right?
Not 3D concepts, yes. We're using only 2D concepts. And the reason, it's because we do have very talented 2D concept artists for environment and for creatures, weapons, whatever. And they are not necessarily defining how the mesh is going to be. They're defining what kind of a style, what is the style of the creature, what's more or less what's going to look like. Like I said, like the hook was on one side, we changed to the other side. And it was more clean in the concept if you look at the atlas. And then the final mesh was more weathered and everything. So we don't do after the concept, we have a few phases also. I didn't went into details into character art. We have the first, like the basic mesh, which is more or less what you're saying. It's not a prototype, but we have the basic mesh, and then we go on and on and on until we have the detailed mesh with all the UV maps and etc. Yep, another question here.
I don't know if you can talk about this already, but what is your favorite creature, and what should we look out for when we play the game?
What is my favorite creature? I like the Nemesis a lot, the one that I showed because it can like attack you and go stealth and take cover, and like when you try to shoot, like deflect the bullets and suck the powers. You're like, how am I gonna kill you? It's really hard. You have to work with your henchmen. You have to work your way to kill them. Like you have to think about how am I gonna kill it. It's not just like shoot it, right? So I like the Nemesis. Yeah, that's my favorite so far. But it changes also because they're developing new stuff, and you're like.
I was wondering, at what point do level designers get the prototypes and start using them in levels rather than just test levels?
So you want to know how the level designers use the creatures?
Not exactly how they use them, but at one point in the process they can actually start using them to prototype their own levels.
Sure. So if you go back to the process here, usually that's a very good question because it's important for the levels designers also to know when they can start using the creatures. So they usually, after you get prototype approved, after this time, which is very early actually, they can start putting it on the level. They know it's just the basic stuff, but they know the size, it's the right size for the creature. You don't know how it's going to look like, but you know the size, and that's important for them. You know how fast they're going to move. You know the basic attack. You don't know all the little variations that we're going to create here, but since early on, you can put it in a level. And that's what I meant when I said that several levels that required like different creatures, very many different creatures, they could do it because we had 17 creatures, and you put them all there, and you fight in all those boxes and flipping boxes, and every creature had a different color. So the yellow one is the husk. Oh, watch out! So.
Now the question was, how soon do you involve QA in this process?
Oh, QA since the beginning. Well, since this point on, since prototyping, not the gameplay concept. But since here, we have QA embedded. And actually, if you look at the document, I showed the document somewhere. Like here, we have the deliverables. So since the prototype phase, that's what we're going to deliver with the prototype phase, and that's what QA is going to test. They know exactly what they're going to test. One needs to be there. And it's important to remember that QA is your friend. QA needs to be your friend. They're not supposed to be the guys somewhere else that just send you bugs. They need, actually, it's a very important point. I have been through that like many times in different companies. You have to use QA smartly. So I remember that on Mass Effect 2, when I wanted to bring the QA inside the gameplay team, the lead QA was not very happy with the idea. It was like, no, I need to keep my guys here. It's like, no, I need the QA guy here, like with my team, so that he can like I want him there so that he listens to the crazy stuff that my team is trying to create, and he's going to help the guys to test the stuff as fast as possible, also in the prototype phase, so that we can deliver a better creature. And it is very important. And nowadays we have actually 3 QA. We had 1 on ME2. Now we have 3 QAs working with the gameplay team. So they understand it's important, and now we have 3. And actually, one of the QA guys, the guy from ME2, he became a gameplay designer. He was so good that he became a designer. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember. I really don't remember. Except, I think, I'm not sure. I won't lie. I don't remember. Maybe he was trying to highlight. Maybe he was trying to highlight like the like creatures that would have like that's where you can shoot the weak point of the creature, right? Like when you look at the Atlas, for example, you could see the red plates or something like that. But that was very, very early. It was, you see that here you have like the kind of a humanoid, and we were putting the boxes and trying to show with different sizes and everything. But actually, it's much better. You have like the 1 box with the other one for the head, and 4 boxes, right, with the arms. 2 for the arms. Yep, another question there?
You were talking about iteration circles. How many of them per phase can you do? Like in
how many iterations cycles we do here?
Just like an average.
It can really vary. I mean, it really depends on the creature. So like I said, usually what we do is we try to time box, and we go, you're going to have 2 weeks to iterate as much as you want. I don't care if it's just 1 or if you're going to do like 1,000 times. It's up to you guys to define how many times you're going to iterate. But I try to time box how much time they have. The problem is that when you don't do that, they keep iterating forever. Oh, it's not ready. It's not ready. Oh, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And then you lose time. And that happened with a few creatures in the beginning that we didn't when we were less strict with the time and waiting for them to say, yeah, that's good enough. Yeah. The husk was like, Urgh! I don't know how many times we did the husk. One question here.
Yeah, I got a loud voice, so I can probably shout. When you prototype after the gameplay concept phase, do you ever like hack in something, or is it always like a proper dropped-in AI with basic functionality? Because there's a lot you can do in Kismet Maps, and visualize it, or do you really get it in there for real?
We get in there for real. Like we get in there for real, but we also use Kismet a lot actually. Pretty much we try to use whatever is let's say more efficient for the phase that we have. Yeah, we're not afraid of it's prototype phase, and it's important to put it there in the game and it's playable. It needs to be playable. You have to use it. Of course. That's a very important point that I didn't mention. It's easier for us because we're Mass Effect 3, right? So I don't have to do Shepard. I don't have to do the weapons. I have a lot of weapons already. I have a lot of I have Shepard himself, the camera, etc. So it's much easier in that sense that I'm just creating the creatures. If you have a new game, you're creating a new IP, then you're going to have more challenge. But even if you do, I remember that I was discussing with some other EA teams, and they were, wow, but we don't know if this process is very, very applicable for us because we're doing some different kind of a genre, some kind of a different, it's first person, it's not third person. It's like, why? Why you think it's not important? Try to think about it. And then we were discussing, and they were like, yeah, maybe we can actually. And then they did it. Someone had a question in the back, or no? I thought I saw someone. Well, then, thanks everyone.